For those of you that have watched my videos before, it's no secret that I don't usually watch fantasy or isekai anime. I'm not really a big fan of the whole going into another world thing. I'm not really a big fan of like the whole fantasy genre in general in my anime. The only exceptions being Konosuba, Re:Zero, and that one time in 2012 where I watched Sword Art Online and it wasn't good. That's not to say that I don't like fantasy in general, because I take part in that in other mediums. I enjoy the games of Dungeons and Dragons. I enjoy Elder Scrolls. Final Fantasy is one of my favorite series of all time. So is The Legend of Zelda. However, for some reason in the medium of anime, it just never really sunk with me. It never sat with me. I was never able to get into it. So unfortunately, most anime that had anything to do with fantasy or isekai or being in any sort of mythical world just never really clicked, and I usually dropped them after a few episodes. So after months and months of attempting to pick up a show and failing, dropping most of them after like 2 or 3 episodes, I decided it was about time to get back into anime and maybe this time pick up an anime that I usually don't pick up. I've been hearing a lot of good things about this show called Solo Leveling, and usually since it's a fantasy I wouldn't pick it up. I'd never watch it, never give it the time of day. But so many people were praising it, and apparently it's super popular and it looked pretty cool, so you know what, it was about time I gave it a shot. Now I had a lot of doubts going into this show. I had a lot of doubts because I'm not really a big power fantasy guy either. I'm not really huge on the main character being some guy that's just trying to get stronger and stronger until he's super OP. I usually just like a good underdog story or just a really cool psychological thing. So this was like really out of my comfort zone, but I had to pick it up. It looked really cool. Now Solo Leveling originally started off as a webcomic from South Korea written by Chugong in 2016 and just recently got adapted by A1 Pictures. I'm not really versed into any Korean webtoons. The only ones that I really know are Tower of God, which I'm still waiting on season 2, and God of High School, which I didn't really enjoy. I dropped that after episode 2. So after jumping into all 12 episodes of Solo Leveling and just blazing through it in basically one sitting, all I have to say is that Solo Leveling is peak. Now, I don't know why it took me so long to jump into this show, but I am so glad I did, and I am not going to waste any more of your time. Let's just straight up talk about it. Solo Leveling takes place in this world where humans who possess these crazy magical abilities known as hunters have to battle deadly monsters in order to protect mankind from certain annihilation. And unfortunately, our main character is known as the weakest of them all. Jinwoo is awful at his job. He's absolutely terrible. He finds himself as an E rank hunter. On a tier list with all the hunters, he's at the bottom. It goes from E all the way to S, kind of like your regular tier list. And unfortunately for Jinwoo, this man can't catch a break. He is constantly getting his ass handed to every time they go on raids. Each time these parties go on raids, they're going to these things called gates, and in these gates, they're basically portals where these monsters can come out of dungeons and just straight up annihilate the world. So unfortunately, they have to go stop that, and he sucks at it. Now one day, he and his party go into what is known as a double dungeon, and that double dungeon ended up being one of the strongest dungeons in the entire world. So unfortunately, they get absolutely annihilated. Most of the party gets wiped out, and there's only a few survivors left, and they leave him for dead once he figures out how to get out of this dungeon. So he's left to be sacrificed and die for the sake of the last maybe 3 remaining people. Now on his deathbed, a mysterious program known as the System decides it's going to choose him as its sole player, and in turn for giving him his new life, will also give him this rare ability to level up in strength beyond the limits of any other hunter in the world. Now you can look at the System as basically a leveling system in any RPG, much like Genshin Impact, Final Fantasy, Elder Scrolls. The more he grinds, the more he gets experience points. These experience and ability points go to his literal strength, his literal intelligence, his literal endurance, and his literal vitality. He can put these points to anything as long as he keeps on grinding. It's this leveling system and the fact that it also takes place in a modern setting. It doesn't just take place in a fantasy setting. It's these two that really got me into this series. It hooked me immediately. I'm not usually one for like a character getting super strong over time, but I really enjoy the way that it is implemented because I too love RPGs. There are shows like Log Horizon, Sword Art that obviously tackle these things. However, I really like how it is used here. It's not in a video game. The leveling system is real. He's just the only one that can see it. It's with this leveling system that his potential is damn near limitless. It's so infinite that it makes me want to see how far he can go and what he's going to be able to do. And we haven't even gotten into the whole purpose of why he's doing this. The whole reason he's even doing this type of thing is because he needs money for his mom mom, these hunters get paid big money. So because of that, every time he tackles a raid, every time he goes into one of these gates and they beat monsters, they can mine crystals and they get paid for their job. And with getting paid for that, he could help his sick mom in the hospital. And I just think that's a really cool, wholesome thing, because I also like taking care of my family. It's really cool. And that's pretty much the whole gist of the show. Without spoiling much, that's how everything really goes. That's how everything plays out. Jinwoo is just trying to get stronger and stronger and make enough money to help everybody and help his family and stuff like that. So that's really it. I don't really want to talk about how everything else goes down, because I think that's what makes this show so good. It was super gripping that I ended up watching like 6 or 7 episodes in like one sitting. Jinwoo is such a really cool main character too, because he's not really forced into any like crazy romance subplot, at least as far as I'm aware. He's not in a love triangle. He's not like super focused on a bunch of outside stuff. He's really just kind of like this Giga Chad guy that's just trying to get strong. He's like one of those gym bros that's like really wholesome, because he's super nice all the time. He's never really mean, but when it gets down to business and nitty gritty, he's willing to do some pretty crazy things. And he's also just insanely strong at some points. Like, it's absolutely insane watching this guy jump from being the worst hunter in the world to being probably the best hunter in the world if he keeps this up. Now, the animation here is actually pretty damn good. I really enjoy the visuals, and A1 Pictures did a pretty stellar job. It's not as good as like Ufotable or Mappa. I think Ufotable is obviously the kings of animation at this point. I mean, just look at Demon Slayer, and Mappa does a pretty damn good job with Jujutsu Kaisen, and Attack on Titan looked okay. But it's still quite good, and I really enjoy the lighting. I think the lighting and the coloring of this show is what really drew me in visually. They use a lot of blue and orange lighting, which are opposite on the color wheel. A lot of people don't really know about the color wheel, you know, maybe that's just nerdy shit. I think it looks nice. It adds this nice, really cold look to the show. This cold look really like it just goes good for this show. I really love the blue. It just makes it seem super intense, super just in there, while then using orange lighting really helps warm things up. My absolute favorite part of this show, though, is the pacing. By God, the pacing is just super quick. It's lightning fast. I like things that move. I don't really like super slow shows. Not saying that slow burners aren't good. I mean, look at Steins Gate. It took 12 episodes for that show to even crank it. But when you have a show that just moves very quickly, it feels like we're not sitting and dawdling on anything. We're not droning here and there. We are moving. Every single episode seems to go by in what feels like 10 minutes, and 12 episodes felt like it took me less than 2 hours to watch when it was probably 5. So I really enjoy the pacing. I love that story beats just go quick. It's one after the other after the other. You're never sitting there. Dialogue feels important. Every scene feels good. Action scenes feel awesome. There's a lot of weight to it. There's a lot of quickness to it. It just feels great. It's awesome on the eyes. It's really great on the brain. You don't really need to use your brain too much when you're watching this show. You could honestly just kind of turn off, get some popcorn or cookies or meth. I implore you, please do not do drugs. Don't do that. Dare told you not to do that, okay? Do you not remember that program we took in school? We had to sit there. They wheeled in like this CRT TV on a wagon, and they told us not to do drugs, and you shouldn't be doing that stuff. Stop it. Go get water. Eat a cookie or a carrot or something. Do something nice with your life, okay? CRT TV is really showing my age here. Now, just because I said a bunch of positives and I think that this show is a breeze to watch doesn't mean that I think this show, it doesn't have its faults. It's got a few. I really don't really care for much of the other characters in this show. I think they're kind of tropey, like the healer not being good at being a healer and being traumatized obviously is going to be an after effect of the fact that they went through that crazy double dungeon in the beginning and almost all died. But I don't really care for that trope too much because they just kind of dump her anyway, and a lot of the other side characters aren't really that important. You don't really care. The only other character that I really liked was the sister, because she was just super nice and went to go visit her mom, and she would make him dinner and stuff. And maybe that one girl that's like a hunter that like she kind of is friends with the sister and then becomes a hunter and joins his guild later on. That's a spoiler, because they don't really delve into the S hunters. They don't delve into a lot of the A rank hunters either. Like a lot of the top rank hunters we haven't really gotten shown yet. We haven't really been fully introduced yet to see what they can do. They only get a little bit of screen time, and other than that, you don't really get much. So I'm hoping that in season 2, that is something that they tackle. I could go read the webcomic or the manga, but I'm gonna probably wait until season 2 comes out. I'm also like huge on music, so this is one of those things where this show didn't really have the best music in my opinion. I think the opening and ending are pretty good. The opening it's a bop, it's pretty good, but it's too K-pop for my liking, but obviously this is a Korean show, so I can't really blame it. And the ending I think is better, but it's also not like super standoutish, except for the fact that the visuals are really nice and strong. I really like how glitchy and weird and like occult it is, so I'll take that. But other than that, like the main soundtrack really doesn't do much. I don't really It's not like the Gurren Lagann soundtrack or Code Geass or Neon Genesis Evangelion. There's really nothing in there that like I'll go hum after I watch the show. It doesn't really stick. So those are really the only main gripes I have with the show, because other than that, this is a fast-paced, fun show with a really cool main character and a pretty cool setting that I wish we just knew more about. But right now, the mystique of it is really, really nice and is really leading me into season 2. I also didn't really like the last episode. I think it was the worst episode in the series, but again, it's only season 1. There's still way more to go. All in all, Solo Leveling is a really, really dope show. It's a great fantasy for those that like fantasy. It's also a really great starting place for those that aren't really big on fantasy and want things to be more in the modern setting. It's got things for gamers. It's got things for just shonen fans, things for seinen fans. It could get dark and gritty. It could be quite fun. It could be really, really cool on the eyes. It's a really great watch, and I would hope that a lot of people watch it. It is not perfect, but it is damn good. I think this is a peak fantasy show. I think this is a peak power fantasy show, especially for someone like me who is not into that genre, and the fact that it was able to captivate me in such a way where I was able to watch all 12 episodes pretty easily is a testament to how good this show is. I will give it a solid 8 out of 10, and I could recommend this to pretty much anyone that likes anime in this type of genre, in this type of realm. This show is fantastic. Again, not perfect, but damn fantastic. I really, really enjoy it, and I hope that there's other shows like this out there. So Solo Leveling gets a nice A rank from me. I like this one a lot. If there's any other shows that you want me to review and watch, or if there's any other things in the anime realm that you want me to talk about, please feel free to like the video, leave a comment down below, and tell me how you feel about Solo Leveling. Tell me how you feel about other anime, and I'll get to it. I will get to it. I promise I'll be more consistent. So with that, this is your friendly neighborhood rom-com senpai signing off. Stay gold.